Hello, my name is Muthoni Gitau. Welcome to another episode of Just Doing Life, the podcast, a space where we explore all the parts of life that we do not like to say out loud. After all, we are all just winging it. Welcome to episode 2 of Options. Options is a weekly series where I share some of the life lessons that I have learned through the years. We did episode 1. It came out recently, but to be honest, I shot that episode back in March and life has lifed. So I'm really happy to be back here recording the second episode. Last time when we talked about things that I have learned from my relationships and what they have taught me. And today we will be talking about grace and most importantly, showing yourself grace. But before we get into that, did you do your homework? Do you remember we had homework? Yeah, we had homework. Did you do your homework? I will not lie to you. I didn't do my homework back then. But in the past week, I was planning to get back into doing this because if you've watched or listened to the previous episode that I shared, the most recent one, which is part of a new series that we're doing every Monday, I was talking about how I have been in a really, really, really dark hole. And I'm honestly really just trying to claw my way out of it. I don't even think I'm trying anymore. I think I had gotten to a point where I was just like, you know what? It is what it is. I sort of stopped fighting to stay alive. So yeah, it's been really, really bad. And the past week, I would say is the first week, including this one, because we are, the last, say, 10 days, the first time in weeks, in more than like 6, 7, probably 8 weeks, where I have not cried every single night. I have not cried myself to sleep every single night of the week. So if that's progress, yay to progress. But I think this also plays into the episode we'll be doing today, because it's about grace and showing yourself grace, and we'll get into all that. So the homework lab. This is important. And then the other thing that also happens is I'll sit there and then I'll be like, okay, I can probably do 2 things at the same time. I'll watch this movie and try and get some work done at the same time. So I'll have my laptop with me and then I'll be doing something. And then eventually it stops being resting. So what I did last week is I took one day off completely where I did absolutely nothing. And one of the things that really helped me is that I put my phone on D&D and I put it away. I didn't have it anywhere near me because those are the days where you start getting those calls for, please come do this, please come do that, please we need this. So there's even times where I'm called back to the office or I'm asked to come into the office. So I was just like, you know what, set things aside and take some rest. And I did. And what I did is I didn't feel guilty. I had those moments where and then I'd be like, nope, your body needs time to rest. So that's how I did it. You can share how you did yours, what it is that you did. If you did your homework, what did you do? Please share in the comments if you are comfortable enough doing that. And let me know how it made you feel. It's very important, because for me, I felt really, when I ended up taking a nap during the day, let me tell you, naps in your 30s, they slap. Now I understand the importance of napping. I will not lie to you. I did not understand why people used to talk about naps until I started taking naps. And I was like, oh, now I get it. And so when you're like over there watching something and you fall asleep, for me, I don't even do that thing for like, oh, let me pause. I just let it play and I nap and I'll wake up when I wake up. So that has been really helpful in the past weekend in trying to exercise or teach myself to rest a bit more. So please let me know what you did for your homework. I hope you did yours and I hope it went well. And I would like to know how you felt. So comment section is open. And now even like on Spotify, you can leave comments. So if you're listening on Spotify and you have a comment on how your self-love I was going to say campaign, your self-love exercise went, kindly let me know. I'd be very happy. And we can share some of them in the next episode. Why not? Let's do that. I'd be curious to know how the showing your self-love, what it did for you. And I can read out a couple of them. So yay. Don't forget to follow us on social media. The handle is JDL the podcast. And you can also follow me at I am Muthoni Gitau on all platforms. Right now, I'm not super active on my personal platforms. I'm really taking some time to just I'm trying to work on my mental health, so I'm not very, very active. But please follow me there. There's other cool things that you can consume. And the podcast handles at JDL the podcast. That's on TikTok and Instagram. If you'd like to share something via Twitter or X, as people call it now, you can use that as a hashtag and we'll find your comments and everything. So now let's talk about Grace. I know when I say Grace, it's not your friend or your aunt. I have an aunt called Grace. It's not about your aunt. Basically, it's interesting. When I prepped for this episode after I did the first episode. The first episode was about the relationships. And so at the end, I was like, okay, cool. Let's do an exercise. And I was like, I think the next best thing would be about grace, talking about how to show yourself grace. And I feel like at this moment, this is probably the best episode I could post at this moment, given how I personally feel um, and how my world's episode. Don't forget, we're going to have homework at the end of the episode because that's who I've become now. I am someone who gives out homework, and why not? So, what is grace? Grace honestly sounds like an easy thing. For me, the way I think about grace, I think grace is showing yourself kindness, especially in times where you don't think you deserve it. Showing grace, or for me, grace translates into showing empathy and love and kindness towards things, situations, or people, especially when you don't think they deserve it, or when they're beating themselves up, or in situations that are very tough, and you figure a way to try and, I don't want to say understand, but feel for someone. For me, that's what grace translates into. It sounds like an easy thing. I will not lie to you. It sounds like it sounds easy, but sometimes like the environment you're in, the odds are stacked against you, the way you grew up in terms of like how do you talk to yourself? How do you receive love, for instance? How did you grow up? Do you have any traumas that you're holding on to or that you're dealing with? And so when it comes to showing yourself grace in such moments, you might not feel very deserving, and that can be very hectic. So sometimes that's what makes it hard, right? The relationships you have with people, the way you talk to yourself. There's times where it's hard for you to see the good in it or the brighter side to it. So it's times like those where you actually need grace. The reason I said I felt like um I felt I felt like this is the best time to do this particular episode. I recently shared the struggles that I've been dealing with in terms of my mental health. Um and I mentioned, so depression is something that has been present in my life for years, for a very long time. And I've had ways to manage or, live through it. And then, it comes in waves sometimes. There's times where things are good. There's times where things are really, really bad. And there's times where it's just very neutral. And and then, like, as I mentioned, if you've listened to the previous episode, if not, please go listen to it. I think it's a really important one as well. And I don't want to repeat all the things I said there. So for me, it had gotten to a point where I was feeling extremely suicidal. And in terms of showing myself grace, I will not say that it's something I have practiced in the last 2-3 months. I don't think I've given myself any kind of grace in the last 2 to 3 months. Um, I constantly, and I think, okay, for context purposes, I was heavily involved in mobilizing people, like, talking to people about like going to the protest and showing up myself as a Kenyan because I felt it was very important. I do consider myself an active citizen. And so I was showing up to all the protests and we're seeing all these things happening. And I will not lie to you, I was dealing with a lot of guilt, especially when the cops started killing people. There was a lot of guilt. The things that brought about the guilt. One, I was already in this really dark place, and I will not lie, I was not opposed to dying. I was like, I didn't want to die like that. It looks very painful, but in my head, I was like, yeah, at least it would be for a worthy cause if it did happen in that situation. And secondly, it would help me fulfill a thing, not full. It would it would take me out, right? Without it being by my own hand. And then now on top of that, so like when you're seeing all these people who were killed, with myself, it would have translated into things like when I was doing these things, I was doing them because I love my country and I do believe it's the right thing to do. And I do believe that we're doing something great here in terms of like this movement and this revolution and fighting for better for ourselves. And like just having that conversation with myself and reminding myself why I was doing this and what it was for. And to be honest, like during that period, I wouldn't say it gave me like going for protests and doing that stuff gave me purpose, but for me in that moment, it was a reason to live. Leading up to that, I wasn't seeing a lot of reasons to be around. But being vocal and being, I don't say forefront, but like when you'd share stuff and you find information and share it and you follow up with people and you show up for people, it kind of got me out of my head. if that makes sense. And so in that time, I was like, hey, we have a reason to be here, right? So I kept showing up, kept tweeting, kept going. I've gone to court so many times. I've been to so many police stations. For the first time, I showed up since I don't remember the last time. I think the last time I was at like City Mortuary, I was a child. So for the first time as an adult, I ended up at City Mortuary. And you're there talking to grieving families, and you're trying to extend them grace and hold their hands and just talk to them and figure out, okay, cool. So like there was all this stuff, and you're seeing families grieving, and you're thinking, like, this is insane. Like, this shouldn't have happened. And then there's also that element of guilt that you're still dealing with at the back of your head. So there was all that. And in all this, I was not showing myself grace because I would get back home and I'd be like, cool, so what more do you need to do? At no point was I like, Muthoni, you're doing so much, you're doing well, you're doing good work. I just felt like I needed to do more because I felt like um I needed to justify why I was not one of the people who got shot or someone who got injured. Like I needed to justify why I was still standing, if that makes any sense. Um, so why is grace important? In such an instance like this, showing yourself grace and even like the way you talk to yourself, the importance of that is reminding yourself that you're human, reminding yourself that in certain situations, there's nothing you could do. For me, um, let's say in this situation, I think this would be the best to explain it. Showing myself grace would have been the way I was talking to myself. I could have been kinder. I could have been kinder to myself. I could have looked at it logically, where it's not my fault, but the fault of the people who actually killed people, right? Like, I didn't pull up a gun and nini someone or a weapon and hit someone or take a stone and throw it at someone. I didn't do that. As Muthoni, I did not do that. So that guilt was not mine to carry, if that makes sense. It should have been following the people who actually took people's lives. So grace in such an instance is very important because it reminds you that you're human. That's the part that like I kept forgetting. So even with my emotions, even with the thoughts, I could have also sat with saying, okay, I feel like this and I know why I feel like this. I understand why these feelings are coming up. And then we just explore, okay, where is this coming from? Is this true? Because now in such an instance, like when you break it down, you're like, oh, it's not true. I did not cause anyone's death. I did not harm anyone. All I wanted was good governance. All I wanted was, can we be listened to? We were saying, this thing is not good for us. Please take it away. Do something, do better. That's how you talk to yourself. You're going to be kinder to yourself. The same way I extended grace to other people should have been the same way I extended grace to myself. For instance, there's certain people who, after like coming once or twice and then didn't show up again, I was not like mean to them and saying, oh, now look, you no longer care about this country. Oh, you didn't come for this particular mandamano. When people are like, hey, me, I'm scared for today. I don't think I can show up, but I'll support from home. I was like, yeah, I totally get it. I totally understand that. You know, do what you can. I would send like several people my live location so that they knew where I was at any given time. So we're very quick to offer grace to other people, but we don't extend the same to ourselves. So for me, I would say one of the ways to make sure that you're showing yourself grace, I think I'd say assume that you're someone else and figure out how you would show up for them or how you talk to them, and then talk to yourself in that same way. So the way I was holding people's hands when they would say, I'm really tired, or I can't believe this, or all the things, or we have to, the same way I was showing up for them in that moment should have been the same way I showed up for myself when I was having those thoughts of, I don't think I'm doing enough. I need to do a bit more. I'm responsible for this. I played a part in this. I could have just been like, no, but Muthoni, did you though? Are you the reason this happened? So if I looked at myself as another person and extended grace to that person as if it wasn't me, I'd probably have been kinder. But sometimes the way we talk to ourselves, not the best. Um, so now in terms of like showing yourself grace on an everyday basis, it's something that I hope I'm going to be able to start doing. I need to, this episode is for me as much as it is for you. And I'm so glad that instead of prepping for a whole other episode, I decided to go with something I had prepped months ago because it really speaks to me now. Because I really need it now. I think those many months ago, I probably didn't need it as much as I need it now. Back in March, when I prepared for this, I don't think I needed it as much as I do now. I had even done like a rant on a video that I planned to shoot. And I was like, yeah, we'll be talking about grace and it's going to be fun. So it's important to find ways to show yourself grace on an everyday basis, even if it's like one small thing or just clocking something. Because sometimes there's things that we do that we don't notice that we are doing until maybe someone points it out, or we don't think it falls into maybe being kind to yourself. So, what are the ways that you can show yourself grace on an everyday basis? First of all, I'd say talk to yourself kindly. The kindness you show others, extend it to yourself. That's the way of saying, think of yourself as a third party and see, if this was someone else and they were going through this, how would I handle them? How would I talk to them? And then do that for yourself because it's really, really, really important. Number two, I'd say give yourself room to make mistakes and learn from them. Sometimes we have this thing where something happens and you go like, you know what? I am too smart to have fallen for that. Sometimes you have moments where you're like, I don't believe, even like, for instance, when you think about like relationships and the dating scene, you hear women talking, especially women talking to themselves in a way where it's like someone did them dirty. And for some random reason, they still blame themselves because they think they could have done better. They don't see the situation for what it is. They don't pay attention to the fact that, no, this person was a liar. The problem is not that you were lied to. You're not the problem because you were lied to. They're the problem because they're a liar, right? Then you have even say like things at work, you make a mistake and then maybe someone shouts at you and they say something. One of my mantras, I usually look at certain things and then I'll ask myself, does this have anything to do with me? And if it doesn't, I even have like a song where I just go like, this has absolutely nothing to do with me. And I'll just like chant that like multiple times, like, oh, this has nothing to do with me. And I'll be like, this has absolutely nothing to do with me. And when it has something to do with me, I trust that this person will walk up to me and say, hey, I have a problem with you, and this is my problem with you. So you have to give yourself room to make mistakes. And sometimes there are things that they are mistakes, but you end up learning so much from them. So if you can learn from your mistakes, learn from them. One of the things that I have come to learn is one, women really judge ourselves harshly, as much as we are also judged harshly when it comes to the society and the people around us. In truth, we also do judge ourselves a little too harshly, if we're being honest. And I know sometimes that's because of upbringing. Also, society tends to judge women a lot harshly than it does men. So sometimes we carry these things with us and we don't even realize it. So always remember not sometimes, you can never control how people outside of you behave, how they do things, the things that they do. You can only control the things that you do, the things that you say. So that's where you have control. So if that's where you have control, the things that you have control over, you can do something about, then do something about them. If you can't, just be comfortable with the knowing of it's not my problem, or I don't have control over this, and that's okay. And release that control. You also have, or I've said this, you have to remind yourself that you're human. That's one really, really, really important thing. The next thing I'd say on an everyday basis is knowing that it's okay. And what I mean by this is sometimes you'll have, whenever we try to start something new or learning something new, we have the tendency to do like to catch ourselves when we are slacking or when we are falling short. So if I've said I'm going to extend more grace to myself, and then I find myself talking some type of way about me, and then I go like, no, why are you thinking like that? See, we said we're not thinking like that. And then it becomes this whole spiral of now you just being like, no, you should do better. And you're not realizing and not realizing that you're continuing that pattern of not extending grace to yourself when you are doing the questioning and the up and down and the now what aspect. Look what you did. You start beating yourself up for not showing yourself grace, yet the whole idea is to show yourself grace and kindness. So just allowing that, no, reminding yourself, knowing that it's okay. Then the last thing I'd say here is you have to allow others to be there for you. Sometimes I know how hard this is. Trust me, like I know I struggle. If there's one thing I struggle with, I really, 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 really struggle with this one. Um, and I understand why. I understand it's because sometimes you've been let down so many times before. You've expected people to be there for you and they weren't. You've expected people to show up for you and they weren't. Also, sometimes the way we grow up, sometimes we grow up being super independent or hyper independent because we grew up in families that expect us to they just leave us to our devices. I don't know how many of you are like me. I when I was younger, I used to think it was a flex when I'd say, oh yeah, like my parents they don't even bother. They don't have to worry about me because they always know that I'll take care of things or I'll figure it out. Or so even like when I had problems, when I had issues, I didn't see the need to go have those conversations with them or ask for help from them because I was always left to my own devices. And that's what I usually say. It's like I was always left to my own devices. So I'd figure out my stuff, be it school, be it whatever. Like at no point did I go home is like, hey, I need help in ABC. When I was younger, I thought that that was a flex. Being an adult now, I realized that that was neglect. My parents, I was a child. I had no business taking care of any business. I was a baby. I just a baby. I had no business taking care of any business. The only business I had business with was being a child. But because of the environment I grew up in and that setup, the home setup that I had, I thought it's like, cool. So, and the funny thing is like, for instance, like I use my sister as a reference a lot, and it's because my sister and I are not too far apart in age. And I could see the differences of how, because with my brothers, the age gap is quite wide, but with my sister, it's not as wide. So I could tell the differences. And I noticed that she got a lot more care. And I used to think it's because she just can't do anything for herself. Like she has to be helped with everything. Because even I used to help her, right? Be it homework, is it washing her uniform? So she got taken care of when I didn't, like in that regard, where she had a lot of people she could fall back on and ask help from, but I didn't. And even now, as an adult, I still struggle with the same thing because I'm still in this situation where I feel like, especially like in the family setup, almost everyone, when they need help, I'm the first person they call. Be it whatever it may be. It's like, oh, I need a letter for something. I need an application for something. And then sometimes I realize like when I need that kind of stuff or that kind of help, I don't know who to call because I was always used to sorting things by myself or figuring things out for myself without anyone's help. So that hyper independence was born out of that. So allowing others to be there for you, I know it's hard. It has to be people you can trust because also there's people who will There's people who try to be there for you, and in the moment they're like, yeah, I'm here for you. But then every 12 business days, they throw it back in your face, and you're like, it just, you go back to, this is why I actually don't ask for help. Or there's also this thing where you ask and then nothing is offered, or like someone just goes like, you'll figure it out, and you're like, this is the reason why I don't do this. I've had so many of those moments. So you just end up going back to yourself and being like, okay, I'm gonna retreat and I'm gonna figure it out by myself. So back to the hyper independence. So where you can, and with people you can trust, allow them to be there for you in the ways that they can. Allow them to extend grace to you. And sometimes if you feel like you're not extending yourself any grace and you really feel like you need grace, you can ask someone and say, hey, I really need someone to be kind to me right now because I've not been very kind to myself. Could you help me with that? And maybe that can help you in that situation. Grace to yourself is very important because, one, we're living, I don't know about everyone else, like for your mental health, right? Extending yourself grace is good for your mental health. It's good for your physical health because sometimes grace also means feeding yourself, taking care of your body, making sure you clean up, taking care of your environment, taking care of your space, and all that. Grace to self is important because I think when you have grace for yourself, you have even more to extend to the world and to those around you. That's one of the reasons why I think showing yourself grace is really, really, really important. I'm going to try and practice this myself. I'm just, I'm just trying to be human again, I'm trying to get out of a zombie mode, and it's really difficult, but I'm really doing my best. And right now, showing myself grace at this time is accepting that I am doing my best and this is all I have at this moment, and I don't have more to give and I don't have more to extend, and it's okay. So for me, in this in this moment, that's what grace looks like. Grace looks like acceptance and just saying, this is all I have right now and this is the most I can do. And even like sometimes you talk to people and they say things to you and they're like, oh, does that make you feel better? And sometimes the answer is no, it actually doesn't. And it's okay. I know you're trying to help. It's okay. I'll keep trying. So for me, that's all I have right now. So that's all I'm going to give. This week's homework. Someone asked me to do this and I still haven't done it. So we're going to do this together. I talked to someone and I told them all the ways I was feeling. And they told me to pick a newspaper and a pen, an old newspaper, and use my non-dominant hand and ask myself, what am I feeling now? And look at the newspaper, and my eyes and hands and mind will pick up words and then underline those words. And then keep asking like a why questions. Like, so now after it's like, if I know what I'm feeling, for instance, so it's like, why am I feeling like this? And then I can just, whatever words I see, and then I pick the words. I'm like, okay, cool. So if say you see a word that says exhausted, it's like, why am I feeling exhausted? And see if there are words in the newspaper. So it's like, I thought that that's a really good, interesting exercise to do. And then I can have now like a pen and paper on the other side and write down all the things that I'm noticing. And then just keep asking myself as many why questions until I feel like I've gotten to the bottom of that. So it's like, why am I feeling exhausted? And then maybe you can say, oh, because work has been crazy. So why has work been crazy? And then you pick something. Maybe it will say, trauma. Why is work traumatic? We've been seeing things. What things are you seeing? So just like until you figure out the root cause of the emotions, and then now you have a way to walk that back. I hope that that's going to be helpful. I am definitely going to try this. I think I would want to try it to like a couple of people, or I don't know if I'm going to try it like on camera and see how that goes, because I haven't done it yet, but someone advised me to try that and I'd like to do that. Yesterday, I also spoke to someone. So this week you're getting 2 assignments. This other one, it's not going to be insane. But that other one we'll talk about. You'll tell me the things that you discovered next week when we come back. We'll be doing this. Yeah. The other one, I was talking to someone yesterday and they told me to check out this 1 minute meditations. And because when we think of meditation, we think of all this time you have to take, I have to sit in silence, I have to do this. And she said, anytime during the day, there's even a podcast for it. You can go on YouTube and you'll find them. They're called 1 minute meditations. And then in a moment, you can just go like, okay, I'm going to do my 1 minute meditation now. And then for just 1 minute, you get to just center yourself, go inwards, and it's just for a minute. You don't have to commit for it for too long. Just do it for a minute. So I'm going to try to do that every single day this coming week, and then I'll tell you how it goes as we do the next episode. So yeah, that is the episode for today. I hope that it was helpful. I hope that in the last video that I did, I haven't read all the comments, but I've seen some comments and I've struggled to get back to people, but I'm gonna get back to everyone. That the feelings that we're feeling, there's a lot of us who are going through Kenyans. I know how bad it is out here, and I'm sorry. You shouldn't be living through this. Like, no one should. To all the people who are struggling out there, like globally, we have guys in Sudan, Congo, Gaza. We're thinking about you. You shouldn't be living through that. And we're not going to stop talking about it. We should not stop talking about all these atrocities that are happening in the world. For me, I think one of the things I keep struggling with, and I think it's one of the things that keeps sending me over the edge, is I don't understand how people get to wake up and continue as if life is normal when all these things are happening in the world. That's the thing I'm really, really grappling with, because to me that doesn't make sense, because I don't understand how like someone can kill, like a state can kill over like 15,000 kids in a month, and then we're like, oh, like, so I think that's the reason. Okay, I don't want to get back into all the things, but yeah, showing yourself grace. Please show yourself grace this coming week. I'll see you back here next week with another episode. Don't forget to check out our Monday series. So on Mondays, we're dropping a new series called Just Doing Life a Little. So that will be a weekly one. We're talking about current issues on that one. If you haven't checked it out, we've dropped our week 1 episode this past week. So please have a look at it. Hopefully, we'll have shot a couple more guest episodes so that on Wednesday you can get a guest episode, and then on Friday we'll be back with options. Today we take the option. The options are showing yourself grace. That's the only option that we have for today. Don't forget to follow us on social media, JDL the podcast. Leave a comment, hashtag on Twitter, JDL the podcast. And yeah, I will see you on Monday. Have yourself a lovely, lovely weekend. Bye.